fuck that nigga, get it over. Gone fuck that nigga, get it over. Gone fuck that nigga, get it over with.
Shish kebab. You can never be ready for this type of video, but it has to be done, so let's do it then. If you're still interested in movies after all this damage that has been done, go and watch that. Matt Damon, I'm still not over this, my guy. I'm still not over that performance in that movie. It was just too believable. The type of guy that you were playing, it was just, you were too good, a little bit too good at it. You know, it was a little bit too believable. I'm gonna be so hyped because we're going viral with this one. Odyssey movie, my brain is not working. It's like, I gotta check my clothes before I'm doing this, because like every time I'm starting recording, I see some bullshit like on my shoulders, some hair here, and it's too late. I cannot delete it or anything. Anyway, this is not important. The looks are not important, okay? And we're gonna talk about it later. Odyssey, right? It was a huge project. I don't know how much money they spent making that movie. A lot of expectation from the studio, probably, in terms of box office. A lot of stars in the movie. We have Dune already trilogy. I was so shocked when I realized it's an effing trilogy, because I was like, okay, so first time I went off topic. First time I went to see Dune, I was like, you know what? I mean, that's the movie, right? We are watching like one movie and it's gonna be it. No part two. Personally, for me, it's a part of a movie experience. If I'm going, I'm getting myself a popcorn. And obviously, I'm gonna have me some soda, even though I know it's horrible for you. But in the moment when you're watching that, popcorn gives you this like salty, crisp, crunchy vibes, right? And the Coke, it's obviously, I mean, I think it's just Coke classic. So anyway, those two things together, and when you're watching a movie, a good movie, I think it's like I like this experience. So every time I'm going to the cinema, which is not so often, sitting there chilling, eating popcorn, sipping that Coca-Cola out of a plastic straw, because I'm so sorry, if the movie is 3 hours long, that paper straw, it will dissolve in your drink and you'll not be able to drink it. And I'm not a super quick drinker, you know? It's like, I don't want to drink like a half a liter of cola, like in 30 minutes. Pretty sure it can cause you like severe brain damage. Dune, right? It's such a big movie. When I went to see it, like how many years ago? It was like so many years ago, 4 years ago or something like this. I went to see that movie. I realized that, you know what? I was tricked because it's a part one. So obviously there was supposed to be a part two. Part two I watched like when it dropped, and I was like, you know what? That's it. Finally, we're finishing that movie, because I wasn't thinking about, obviously, I'm trying to set up the cameras. I just want to be in frame, guys. So anyway, and I'm going there, I'm watching this Dune Part 2, and I'm completely convinced that this is the end of this, blockbuster, whatever, bombaster movie. But the movie ends, and it feels like, you know what? There is some kind of logical end to the story. However, it was not the end. Plot twist, there is a part 3 on the way, and we already, I think everyone saw, people who are invested in this like big movie business, or maybe just Timothée Chalamet fans, which is like a lot of them. Anyway, no shade. So what are we talking about here, right? So the third Dune, and it feels like it's like a season of big movies. So they dropped Odyssey also, but we have these two giant directors at the moment. We have Denis Villeneuve and we have Christopher Nolan working in Hollywood. They don't have American passports. You have Canadian citizen there and UK citizen. They're working in Hollywood, and they are the biggest creative forces in that industry. The ones that, you know what, if you hire them for a movie, you kind of can be sure that it will not be just slop, They will try to do something good, genuine, etc. So with Denis Villeneuve, I already accepted that his style of storytelling, it's very like swampy, it's very like slow paced, visually pristine, it's very immersive. However, it can be a bit boring, and his movies are also super long, but there is some kind of takeaway there. You can definitely feel that they've at least worked at the sound design, like all of his movies, like the visuals, the frames, like the camera work, all this stuff, like the costumes, like the shadows, the lights in these movies. They're pleasant to watch on a big screen in the cinema. You can feel that, they definitely, like the budgets that they put into those movies, they definitely paid off. It's at least in this component, it's definitely like an eye candy, ear candy, even though there are a lot of memes. A lot of people are complaining about the sound level in those movies. Like when you have like dialogue, it's super quiet, but then when you have like an action scene, your eardrums are like getting like busted open. This is a big detour. I'm just trying to set the stage for this like big movie, right? Like not a lot of them. Like if some people consider Avengers a big movie, I mean, so be it. Because at some point people were saying that the movies are dying, like the cinema is dying, etc. Right? I mean, same time it was like COVID times. I think small businesses are dying, like small shops are dying, all this stuff, right? So people were saying that there is new age, new era. It's like let's go just online. Everyone, moves online. Everything is online. However, as we can see, like movies are not dying. There are a lot of independent movie theaters, and in general, people still want to go and watch movies together in this communal system. And also, I want to eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola, okay, without being judged when I'm watching a movie in a movie theater. Because I don't want to eat popcorn at home and drink Coca-Cola every day at home, right? But when I'm going to a movie, I have my excuse, okay, to have this bombastic combo of food and drink. So with Odyssey, the situation before the movie was kind of grim because I watched the trailer and whoopsie. And my take was like, you know what? Nolan already has let me down with his previous projects. Oppenheimer, I didn't mess with it like at all. Tried watching it 2 times, I think. Both times like borderline fell asleep. Like, I don't know, something there was not appealing, was not talking to me. Like the way that the story was unfolding and maybe subject matter, maybe the epoch, also this era where events were taking place in a movie. Maybe something was not, kind of linking with me, and I didn't feel the importance. I didn't feel the like scientific appeal and genius appeal. I don't know, it didn't click. And before that, I watched Tenet, and it was like trash movie, in my personal opinion. I haven't tried rewatching it, but I felt like it was an urban version of Inception or something like this. I don't know. It like completely went over my head. Let me be very humble, and I'll just say it went over my head because maybe I'm not smart enough to understand this movie concept and enjoy it truly. And also Travis Scott, I gotta be honest, like he kind of sold that movie for me, and like I watched because he made a song for that with James Blake, I think, which actually they made another song for this movie Odyssey. And this song, I gotta tell you, you gotta sit there for the credits because that song slaps. Like that's a fire song right there. After this movie, it does something to you. This song is like, I just sat there and was listening to the track. Unfortunately, after like maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes, they brought the volume down so I couldn't hear it and till the end, but I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere. I'm gonna listen to it later. Soundtrack in general for this movie, this is like Ludwig Göransson or something, right? This guy, he worked with Childish Gambino, I'm pretty sure, right? And then he worked with some other musicians, and he worked with Nolan on his previous projects also. I think this guy is definitely a super qualified musician and professional, and definitely the vibe of this, like the main theme for this movie, I think he knocked it out of the park. That's exactly the vibe that you need for this movie. A little bit morbid, a little bit reflective, and like very like beautiful. So I think that's the kind of like overall maybe vibe of this movie. So that's like the intro for this movie, right? That's the setup. Like I was going to this movie, wasn't really expecting anything. I knew this is the director, right? He's like a big dog in a movie game. And also obviously everyone was talking after the trailer dropped, especially everyone was talking about the situation with the woke agenda in a movie, which is undeniable these days. But I think it will be interesting because at some point people will stop calling it woke. It will be just a movie, right? Some of the people who still like, who maybe like even know and study movies, etc., because through the movies you can study history of culture and different eras, different decades and all this stuff. So definitely the woke type movies, a lot of them are dropping like each year, and it feels like a little bit here and there will be a woke agenda in every movie. In most of the movies that I watched, like recent movies, here and there was something like a little sprinkles, like little crumbles of woke here and there. It was like there definitely, and sometimes unfortunately it was like even woven into the plot, sort of. So the story was written already with this in mind, with these ideas in mind, and for me personally, it did make things easier, okay? Because I didn't really associate with any of those agendas. I'm just a fan of a good movie. First of all, I want the movie to be a story from a different perspective other than mine, and I want it to be a quality and honest story. That's what I'm looking for in the movies, right? So, and I'm open, right, to different ideas. It doesn't mean that it will change my perception of like how I think the world should be, let's say, right? Or it doesn't mean that it will change my ideals or affect them, right? So certain things in life that I will never do, I will not do them after watching a certain movie where characters are doing it, right? So, or playing like a video game where characters. So it's like a old discussion about like how it affects actually our consciousness and our decision making and all this stuff. So I'm the type of like audience member. I just want to have an honest, good story. Okay, so I will think on it, I will reflect on it, but it doesn't mean that it will alter my personality, right? I just want to have a good experience. Maybe I just want to like be fly on the wall. Maybe I just want to like escape myself sort of for some time, for these hours. And I want to see a quality performance. I want to see a believable, honest story. I want to see people doing this movie because they care, delivering like good lines, writing a good script, giving you good performances when it comes to actors, and also giving you a great, frames, shots, sequences, audio, sound, visuals, costumes, everything. Okay, sets. I want people to care, when they're making it. So when I'm watching it, it kind of triggers something inside of me. And I feel like, what I see that people put in time and work and effort, even though maybe it's not my cup of tea, maybe it's like, a movie that I will not rewatch ever, right? So, but still, I want to see someone try. Okay, I don't want to see slop. I'm not enjoying like lazy screenwriting. I don't like bad performances. I can sit through it, let's say, right? Give actor a chance, deliver a moment, maybe a brilliance or something, right? However, if it's like miss, I will call it out, okay? And I will talk about it, and I will not enjoy it, and I will not just sort of let it fly because it's like, what? It's a big movie and it's like you need to support the agenda or something like this. I don't care about this stuff. So I can speak the truth. My personal opinion, whatever happens, let it happen. Okay. So I was not expecting anything amazing. I just wanted to give like a director and the cast and all the crew a chance, and maybe just also I was like, what, if it's gonna be a trash movie, I just gotta have a laugh, I'm just gonna eat popcorn, drink my Coca-Cola, and I'm just gonna like cringe and like be this kind of annoying sort of commentator, very like, a cynical guy who will be just sitting there laughing at these people, what. And that was my whole vibe going into this movie. So I also tried to watch it in IMAX, but I realized that I was already too late for that because everything was pre-booked basically. There was some not good front row IMAX, right? It's a horrible experience. You also saw those Luke Maxer dream jaw lines of those actors. Luke Maxing is part of this agenda. I'll try to pull this term into my story, into my review somehow. Yeah. And I really tried to make it like a smart, cool video essay, but then I realized I'm just not operating like this. It's going to be a huge yap session about this movie, which will be all over the place, chaotic, absolutely, but hopefully it will, bring maybe at least some smiles to audience faces. The same mentality that I was going into this movie, at least maybe I will laugh, if it will be so bad. And it was like I think it was lunchtime. Around lunchtime, I went to a regular cinema, like regular screen, the one that trimmed the movie. And I was coming with this sort of mentality, what, if the movie is good, I'll pay again for the ticket and I'll watch it in IMAX. If the movie is good, right? If I want to rewatch it. So right now, I'm not going to show my hand, okay? Reveal my hand. I'm not going to reveal my cards. So let there be a little bit of suspense whether I like the movie or not. Okay, so I think I was even the first person actually to pop up at the cinema because I thought the movie was at 11:25 and the movie actually was at 11:45. So first time ever ever I arrived 20 minutes earlier to the movie. Scratch that. First time in my life I arrived 20 minutes earlier to anything. The situation was like this, right? So amazing, beautiful lady greeted me, and you know what? I was like, if the movie, if I'm not gonna like the movie, at least I saw this beautiful woman and she assisted me. She opened the door for me because in one hand I had this popcorn, in another hand I had Coca-Cola, and I had a backpack, and I was like entering the cinema hall, whatever. I think I was sitting somewhere in the middle, like I think it was like 7th row out of 12, 11, something like this. I was sitting there right in the middle, so watched all the advertisements before the movie, and ate maybe like quarter of my popcorn while watching the ads because didn't have any breakfast. Okay, I was going to watch that movie on an empty stomach because I wanted really to be like, tripped out of my mind by these visuals, by this artistic excellence. Anyway, so then the movie started, right? Movie starts with Travis Scott, straight up. So movie starts with this guy. He's in a movie. He made a song for the movie, and he was casted as a bard, I think. He was kind of delivering some sort of like slam poetry, something like, hidden, like making a beat also a little bit, but obviously people probably didn't have this type of like beats, like 19 BPM, like 120 BPM trap style beat, like Take It type beat. Like I'm pretty sure like Philly drill type beat, it didn't exist in 1200 BC, right? He had to utter the words, right? It's how the movie starts, right? And I never, gotta be honest with you, gotta keep it real, never ever in my life read this Odyssey thingy by Homer. I heard a lot of things about it, obviously, right? Kudos to this guy for writing this timeless classic. And the timeless classic aspect of it, we're gonna actually go back to this collocation a little bit later in my story, in my review. Without further ado, let's actually jump straight to the points, to the bullets. So let's talk about all those things in the movie that were happening. All right, so let's go through these points, right? So this is something that was discussed after the trailer dropped, not even after the trailer dropped, after some stills from the movie have dropped, and we knew about the cast was revealed, right? So obviously everyone was like, oh my goodness, Elliot Page is like transgender individual playing this. Like at first I was thinking that he was playing Achilles, and I was like, okay, but then I think, was he a part of a Trojan War? I don't know. I think he was in Troy movie. Brad Pitt played Achilles. He was in Troy movie, and it was Trojan War, so probably he was a part of it. Okay, but plot twist: Achilles is not in the movie apparently at all. I thought Elliot Page was playing Achilles, and my kind of explanation behind it was like, you know what? Well, Achilles is like immortal, basically, right? You only one place in his body you can like poke with something, or you can stab, and apparently you can kill him, which is like very confusing because like regular people, if you stab them in the heel, right, they will maybe bleed, but not to death or something like this, right? It's not such a place where it's like if you cut it, of course in your feet there are a lot of like blood vessels. However, if you just cut your heel, right, or if you poke it or something, like I'm not sure you're gonna die because of it, but Achilles he will die if you do that to him, right? And I thought, like, you know what? Who cares who's playing Achilles? It's like he's immortal, right? So this character doesn't have to be physically like overpowering because he's immortal. Like it's like you cannot kill him, low-key, right? So it's like it doesn't really matter if he's gonna be like a little bit shorter, a little bit skinnier, etc. Like who cares? But as we all seen, or people who were invested in this like post-production PR campaign of the movie, right? We all saw that like Elliot Page, obviously he got bulked and he was like working out, just like Matt Damon, by the way, right? Matt Damon, and I think majority of those male actors who were showing their arms, they were probably working out. Anyway, so, and it's also like kind of like something that goes not against actually, but aligns with this kind of era of our culture, modern culture that we are living in, where obviously people are hitting the gym. Everyone is they want to look good, right? Everyone wants to look good, especially men. They want to look good, and this is something that has changed in the past like 10, I would say, years. Like in Animal Kingdom, the bird males, they're always like the brightest colors, the most vibrant colors. In their feathers, these are the male specimen, and sort of similar thing we are witnessing a little bit right now in human culture, where men, they're kind of trying to be very like, expressive in their looks in what they're wearing and everything, how they like and how bulk they are, etc. That's this whole thing, right? And the girls, they're openly stating that I'm looking at the arms. When I see a guy, I'm looking at his arms, his shoulders, right? It's important. Like, it's like, if you don't work out, if you don't have like big arms, wide shoulders, you're not gonna get laid. Like, you're not, like, not gonna land that shawty, like that dream shawty, okay, that you're dreaming of, the one that you're like have as a lock screen on your phone. When you falling asleep, you're looking at her face, kind of like dreaming of her. So if you don't have big arms and wide shoulders, this is, had to break it to you, you're not gonna get that dream shawty, apparently. Every male actor in the movie, you can say that they're buff, right? They were working out, because it's a physical story, right? It's about the war, and it's about ancient Greece. So people were fighting at that time, actually, like body to body, right? It was not drones or airstrikes or something like this. Like, you had to be there, like boots on the ground, okay, troops on the ground, whatever, and you had to actually engage in like a bloodshed, right? Like physical, with like knives and arrows and like swords and like spears, all type of shit. So the whole this thing that Achilles, how I was thinking, I'm telling you from my perspective, like I wasn't thinking about it. I was like, I don't care, okay? And also the type of like mindset that I have, even though I'm very like liberal in this case, right? And I welcome everything that comes with it. I just want to see a good movie, okay? So if it's just going to be like a gender-based flick, I'm going to call it out, and I'm not going to enjoy it, and I'm going to say I didn't enjoy it, okay, because it was not good script. I've done it already so many times with the movies that they dropped like recently, big movies, Hollywood movies. And that's why I kind of grew like a little bit weary and a little bit like jaded. Maybe when it comes to modern cinema, I was like, that's partially why I wasn't expecting anything when I was going into this, okay? Okay, so the first point that I wanted to make. So we have a transgender actor, right? So who was playing a soldier, just a soldier. And Nolan is good at those things. He's kind of showing you a little bit like of a culture, society, regular, ordinary life, right? And there was this moment with the character, like the blind guy, like this teacher, wise old guy. In some movies you have this character, and in this movie he was, by the way, like the performance, I'm gonna pull up the name of this guy, okay? His performance was great, and I heard that he was wearing like contact lenses that actually blocked his eyesight, so he was kind of literally half blind on a set. And something that we will talk about it later in the craftsmanship aspect, okay? This is something that definitely I admire, okay? So this guy was really good in this movie. Nolan showed you a little bit how they were doing this like selection of puppies, right? So they were like, dog gave birth, right? The mom and dog gave birth, and you have puppies, and this guy, this wise guy, he was like selecting the puppies that will survive. And there we already see something about the character, right? About, first of all, it shows you something about the time, right? The culture that people were living in. You can say that they were this Hellenistic culture. It's very like about literature. It's about just the fact that they created something like Odyssey, right? It's like an anti-war epic. The fact that they were able to self-reflect and understand the destruction and like all this evil of war already tells you something about the type of civilization that they were able to build and the type of values that they had there, right? However, with all those things, the cruelty and like the harshness and this sort of like aspect component of is still existed, right? So, and it shows you like how easy he was able to like drop that puppy off of a cliff. So to kill that puppy, that he kind of like examined his physical attributes, and he was like, you know what, this dog maybe will not survive, I guess let's kill him. It's like Sparta type energy, right? Which apparently Sparta didn't really actually exist at that time. I think in the movie somehow they reference Sparta. Maybe I'm tripping, but definitely we should separate those time in the ancient Greek history, right? So the Sparta movie 300, Zack Snyder, testosterone madness, it obviously happened much later. What happened there, right? So the fact that he just dropped a puppy off a cliff, it kind of tells you that the times are rough. Okay, and there is no time for being like sentimental. But one of those puppies was saved by Odysseus, right? And there is something already, maybe it's a foreshadowing, maybe it just tells you something about the character, about, this person, who he is, what are his ideals and values. He saves one of those pups, right? And basically he says, it's going to be my dog. So don't kill him, it's going to be my dog. Even though it's like physically not the best, like, sound specimen. And this is something that is interesting because it kind of mirrors the situation that happened later with the character of Elliot Page. So when they realized that they go into war, right, they tried to pick some kind of draw or something. Like they were picking those sticks, and like the one soldier who picks like stick with engraving, a soldier who picks that type of stick, it means that he's going to war, or it means that basically he has to be a soldier, and it's like decided by chance basically. And the character who actually picks this short stick and who is supposed to go to war, it's Rob Pattinson's character, obviously when he was like younger. So he pulls that like sort of draw, right? He pulls that short stick, and it means he's going to war, and he doesn't want to go to war. And he basically trades this with someone who is right behind him. So the next guy, who is much younger, and this is Elliot Page character basically, he fools him because he didn't explain what it means, etc. He just gives him this kind of stake, right, and just tells him like, you gotta take it. Basically he avoids the draft. Okay, then Odysseus, he sees all this situation, and he somehow like protects this like guy who picks like the short stick, right? And it's either he just like takes him under his wing, right? It doesn't mean that he's not gonna go to war, he's gonna go to war, but he will be like in a team with like, you know, in his unit, in regiment, whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm not a soldier, not a military guy, so I don't know how you call it, but basically Odysseus, his man Damon, says like, Elliot Page is gonna be like baby Elliot Page, he's gonna be with me, right? So I'm gonna take care of him. And in this scene already there, I think this movie, I cannot believe that this movie is just a Odyssey, like retold by Christopher Nolan and his script writers, screenwriters. I think his movies somehow reflect the time. I mean, I think all the time it happens, right? The movie that is made in a specific era, I think it reflects something not only about the time when, you know, if it's like a history piece, right? It's not only revealing something about that time, it all reveals something about our current culture, right? And I cannot ignore the fact that I think that happened in this movie also, and Nolan wanted to show you something about he wanted to make a commentary through his reinterpretation of the Odyssey. He wanted to show something about our current culture also, right? And in this case, like we all know that people, how much criticism was sent Elliot Page's way, and people didn't like him, and they criticized him, and that same thing happened like with other casting decisions and other projects that actually were of a lesser quality, but the narrative was already out there. Like people were saying, how can you cast a transgender actor to play like a soldier in the Trojan War, right? It's bullshit. Like it's like a biological woman. It's like, it doesn't make any sense, right? He used this scene, in my opinion, how I read it. He was kind of commenting on this situation where you have even like Rob Pattinson, right? It's like he used to be a crush of all those girls, right? Like the previous generation, now you have Jude Bellingham, and we have Timothée Chalamet. Before that, we had like Robert Pattinson and Twilight trilogy, right? Or whatever, quadrilogy, whatever. He was that person for that previous generation of girls. So this guy, he's, I think everyone can agree that he's aesthetically sound specimen, right? And he can be sort of considered to be as like a beautiful human being, right? And here where this kind of parallel, in my opinion, comes in. So we all know the situation with looks maxing community right now that's going on the internet, has been going on for some time, right? And the whole point of this community is that like this sort of poster boys of this like community, what they're preaching actually, right? It's like that you have to evolve in terms of your looks, right? You have to work on your looks. You have to become as beautiful as you can possibly be, and doesn't matter what you will use to achieve that goal. If it's plastic surgery, okay. If it's some kind of experimental medicine, doesn't matter. If it's like steroid, doesn't matter, go for it. If it's some kind of pharmaceuticals, untested something, go for it, right? It doesn't matter. Just the bottom line is you have to be beautiful. And that's the whole point of this like looks maxing community. And I don't know, that's how I read the situation, right? So, and obviously this is something that goes against the traditional values that we know, that I don't know, some of you maybe also know that like a man, he's not really kind of valued by his looks, right? It's more of a like, and a human being in general, let's say, right? Ideally, you got to put emphasis on ideals, morals, your values, your actions, right? Not just on your looks. So that's kind of the overall narrative that we are coming from, like, and maybe more of a people some of the people that I'm talking to right now, maybe some people understand it, right? And the looks magazine, it goes against it, right? It's a little bit boyish, it's a little bit childish, it's a little bit like immature, right? It's like, I'm gonna just place the bet solely on my looks, right? And let's see where it's gonna get me. Like, it's supposed to get me some money, some attention from women, right? I don't know. It's supposed to get me sex and other those things that people value and have been valuing throughout human civilization. Anyway, so it feels like a conflict of this, right? So you have a person who's a little bit low key, was fooled into this role, but also, right, was kind of like maybe brave enough and didn't feel like fear in the moment and was like positive, not negative, right? And was able to say, you know what, I'm gonna pick this short stick, I'm gonna actually become a soldier, right? I'm gonna go for it. And that same character, Elliot Page's character, he was very important in the situation with this Trojan horse later, right? So because he was sort of sacrificed, something that is also a running theme in the movie, sacrifice. Everyone is talking about sacrifice there. We're gonna talk about it later. We're gonna even talk about Astro World sacrifice. Okay, this is a conspiracy. I love Travis Scott. Okay, I love his music. Grew up on his music. Part of me. I'm not gonna go that far to say that his music saved my life. Okay, but we all know what happened at Astro World, right? And even though it affected this man's finances and his like. I don't think it will affect his legacy, but still, it's also, some people were saying that it's a sacrifice. And it's interesting that he was participating in the movie that was kind of talking about the topic of sacrifice also, right? Okay, so and you have the situation where you have this kind of transgender, right, like sort of actor who's playing this role of a soldier who's will be like slaughtered later, right, in the name of victory in this war. And he was brave enough to participate. You can say he was tricked. Later we find out that he was not told the truth. And Odysseus, like in the scene in the hell also, right, great scene and great performance by Elliot Page. Okay, let's give him his flowers. That hell dialogue between him and Matt Damon in hell, it was amazing. I think it was brilliant. It was shot in such a very like ooh kind of like spooky manner, and he was communicating with those like fallen soldiers, and it definitely felt that they were not safe there. Like, that's, you know what, that those people who died, they didn't forgive him, okay? And they sort of like, they want either revenge, or they want to be buried properly, or they want to be like celebrated at the end of the day. And so, yeah, going back to that scene from the start of the movie, you have Rob Pattinson, who will be playing a villain, basically, in this movie, right? A guy who was very like a slick, sly, smooth operator type guy who will be like, whispering certain things into the ear of Queen and Hathaway. But at the same time, he will be fucking the maid or something like this, right? And they will be plotting on overthrowing like this whole regime, whatever. So this guy, he's like, exercising his opportunities during this stay. And also you can say that he's a very like snake-like kind of figure. And we're going to talk about it also later. But the values that he represents, obviously, they go against the values of Matt Damon or people who are fighting with him by his side, right? So this is a different type of character. He's more of a like, a type of guy who will be like slimy and who will survive, even if it will mean that he will lose his dignity, honor, and all those other things, right? It doesn't matter. So he's a pragmatic person, and it's not like he's portrayed completely in a bad light, even though towards the end of the movie, it's very hard to defend this type of character, because obviously I think Nolan wanted you to kind of like laugh at him and like to see lack of this kind of like masculine, traditional masculinity in him kind of triggers this, reaction in audience. Like, you want to just laugh at him like, haha, oh, you're trying to save your life. It's like, you don't want to fight Odysseus, like, because you're gonna lose type shit. So that's the first point that I wanted to make in this movie, right? It felt like it's like how he casted those characters and the type of like the scene that they were part of in the very start of the movie kind of showed you that, a transgender guy has more like, later he's transgender. This guy has more courage and more balls, even though born without the balls, right? Has more balls than this guy who's like a looks maxer, low-key, like Robert Pattinson, like good-looking guy who's just trying to save his skin type shit, okay? So it feels like that's how I read it. I don't know. Maybe I'm tweaking, okay? You tell me. So, but it felt like he wasn't trying to avoid his kind of fate, low-key, right? While Rob Pattinson, actually, he was trying to like be smart and like cunning in order to just, preserve his life and even like take his shot at the throne, right, at the power position. Okay, so that was the first point. We got to trim it. Okay, so courage point later, right? So what does it mean? Pattinson character felt Roman somehow, in my opinion, right? So lack of moral values, and in his face also how by the way, his performance was great. Robert Pattinson delivered a great performance because you didn't like him, okay, in the movie, because he didn't have any honor, right? Oh, so all those things that I mentioned before, he actually portrayed it, obviously through his dialogues, through his words, but also through his delivery, his facial expressions, his mimic, and all these other things. He perfectly portrayed this type of character, this type of person who's just trying to like get by and doesn't matter if someone is gonna get in the way. Okay, it's like all just what's the word for this? We'll have another character similar to this, but we'll talk about that. So yeah, the courage, right? So you have definitely also something that will be reiterated in the movie later, and I was even talking to AI about this. So why? I mean, people were laughing that there was a fair amount of, I think there was a spam of exposition, right? So the characters in the movie, they were telling the audience that the age of bronze is about to collapse. So we're exiting the age of bronze, right? And somehow in the movie, it felt like they are sad about it. And it feels like the glory days are about to come to an end, right? And I was thinking like, I mean, Nolan, he's a smart guy. So why would he let his characters, reiterate this like take about the end of the Bronze Age if there is no meaning behind it, if it's like over exposition, right? So I think, and I was thinking about it, and what follows the Bronze Age is in Iron Age. Like, of course, this is not like 50 years apart; it's like 1,000 years apart almost, but even more than that. But like, what do you associate when you think about Hellenistic civil? When you think about ancient Greece, right? You think about philosophers, you think about Homer, right? You think about all this like culture, right? You think about this sort of like they reiterate the Zeus's law, right? The golden rule. What we know right now is that like you treat someone else like you want to be treated, right? So all those like humanistic ideals, you can say that, you can argue that in Roman civilization in the time when they were peaking, right? Those things that were not like celebrated, but different things were celebrated. The Roman heroes are like Nero, right? It's like Caligula, it's like other Julius Caesar, it's betrayal, right? It's like stabbing, like it's fight for power, it's like all this like things like Colosseum, right? Like all those things, it's like very barbaric sort of. It's like incorporation of violence, and also it's a fight for power, and it's lack of morals and ideals sort of. It's a crisis of morality or something like this, right? You can argue. So that's how I initially thought about it, right? So, but obviously between like this events in the Odyssey and between like those things that I described in Roman Empire, it's like 1,000 years apart. So you cannot really like make that claim sort of, because it's too much time between those. But still sort of maybe you can like insinuate, you can like point to this, and that's what I'm trying to make, because I'm sure that Christopher Nolan, he's like, okay, I'm making movies for Americans, but it's like still you don't have to write this in a script that your characters will like say 3 times that Age of Bronze is about to end, okay? Because like I'm not sure that American people even know what Age of Bronze is. Like some of them maybe know. Okay, so I'm not gonna like laugh at American civilization, because it gave us popcorn, Coca-Cola, and McDonald's, all those things, triple cheeseburger. You know what? I still eat it sometimes and I enjoy it. Okay, so it's just good. Okay, so this is not the point, right? We're not criticizing the American culture with this one. Yeah, the fact that they're overexposing this situation, right? It's like they're breaking almost kind of like the third wall, the fourth wall. I don't know how it's called, but they're telling the audience, it's like that, you know what? I mean, obviously people in that time, they weren't speaking like this. They weren't like saying the Age of Bronze we're living in right now, it's about to end and we're going to enter maybe the Iron Age. People weren't speaking like this. They were just living, right? So obviously it kind of, the fact that he added those lines in the script, it meant something, right? So that's what ChatGPT told me, right? So when the characters invoke the end of Bronze Age, by really be saying the world in which these ideals made sense is coming to an end. And what are those ideals, right? The humanistic sort of ideals. I mean, in the Roman age, they were still in literature, right, and history also. They were rewriting mad shit, like it was all over the place. But you can say that also, like, and we're gonna touch that point later, that history is written by victors, right, and also it is narrated by the victors, so which is depicted in this specific movie, the Odyssey, also in that scene where John Bernthal and Lupita, they were talking to Tom Holland, and she was trying to actually explain how it actually happened, right, and but John Bernthal, he stopped her and mid-sentence, and he was like, no, it's like, this is how it actually happened, and we're gonna honor this sort of history. We're gonna preserve this version of history, right? Which kind of like already tells you that there are many versions of that history. But obviously the side that wins, right, they have a chance to write down the how it happened in from their point of view. Also, when I was talking to ChatGPT about this like difference in character, we have Rob Pattinson, right, and Odysseus, you can say, or even Tom Holland, who's his son, right, and they share a completely different values, you can say, right. So our character, like Rob Pattinson, he will not fight for his like family or his country or for his like honor, you know, lose his life for the honor, because he just want to stay alive and maybe take a shot at the throne, sort of, right, like we already said. So he's a survivor, he's a pragmatic, and that's why what makes him slimy and you know, snake-like, because he just prioritizes survival over, you know, dying for some kind of values or for nobility, right, for noble ideals. And that's where the conflict is, I think, in the movie also a little bit, right. And also all those like things that you can say that Nolan already used in his previous movies, in Batman, for example, in Dark Knight, right, this famous overused quote that either you die a hero, right, or you live long enough to become a villain, low-key, right. And that's maybe also the juxtaposition. So why I'm bringing this quote right now, just to show you that those ideas and topics and conflicts, they are not foreign to the type of movies, that the type of universe, the type of stories that Christopher Nolan is telling us, right. So yeah, and the collapse of this kind of Bronze Age and why it's actually exposed to us, right? It's why exposition, right? I think it's just to kind of metaphorically show us that like sort of older values, like they're kind of coming to an end, and it's like we got to fight for them, right? Because some things that are coming, they're going to be very different and not everyone will like it, right? Maybe also you can like put it on a soil of American society where you have like those things like bipartisan system, right? And obviously you can say that like a character like current president for the United States, right, he's more of a survivor type. He's not really a noble guy, right? That's how I'm trying to kind of read this, because Christopher Nolan, obviously he's a liberal, right? His lands on the democratic side of this landscape, American political landscape. It's not like his movie is this kind of like, you know, a big update on the whole situation in the society that's happening, but also it is a commentary on it, I'm pretty sure, because the type of person like Nolan, I'm not sure that he's just a movie geek. He also interested in bigger things than that. Like he's interested in culture, societies, in different historical moments in time, etc. Wow, let's clap it up. I think I'm crushing it. What do you think? And something that like I asked ChatGPT, so can we like monitor the values in the Bronze Age and Iron Age? But I was trying to far-fetch it. I was trying to, you know, kind of like to make this argument work, but in some aspect, maybe it did, but of course it's more complicated. In general, what's the difference between Bronze Age, right, and Iron Age is that Bronze Age you can describe as a more like harvest type age. It's like more prosperity, and people were more focused, let's say, on greatness, on values, on community or expansion, all those things, right? Basking in this like amazing like harvest, you can kind of say, right? And Iron Age, it was more pragmatic, it was more fragmented. I think this is definitely something that also when characters do this exposition, maybe like screenwriters and Nolan wants to communicate some of those kind of like ideas also to you. Okay, so something else that is in the movie for sure, it's like colonialism and warfare. Those two topics, I think they are going through this movie just because we see how Odysseus going from island to island with his crew, and like his obviously objective is to keep his team alive and fed. Okay, so that's what they're after. Each time they land on all those islands, they just after food, and most of the times it backfires. Okay, so this type of like mentality, colonizer mentality, when you just step on a foreign soil and just like ravage it and like steal the resources and, also kill people and like rob them of their food and shelter and etc. It's all part of this imperialist colonialist mindset. I think it was also low-key a critique of that, because at the end of the day, and the end of the movie also, we see that Odysseus is actually the character who is able to self-reflect, and he's the character who's able to look at his actions, right, and understand the harm and the moral weight and damage that you do to other people. And like Zeus's law, right? You're doing this to yourself. When you hurting someone else, you're hurting yourself, because at the end of the day, we are connected, right? We empathic. Some people maybe not, but this is, you can see deviation or something like this, right? We are all connected, and when we hurt someone, we hurt ourselves, right? It's like when you express aggression, I don't know, when you in anger like hurt something, right? When you just punch the wall or punch someone, you also hurt yourself, right? You will hurt your arm probably or something like this, right? You will feel it in your own body. This is like a very basic explanation, but that's the point, I think, on colonialism. I think it definitely, I couldn't like not see it when they especially like go to those islands where it backfires, right? When they lose their men, when they face those like adversities, etc. It feels like when you come in with this mindset, like you're gonna just take things by force, you're gonna pay for it at the end of the day. And we're not going historical in this, but you can also trace it with some of the superpowers of the old world, sort of, those colonial countries and empires that were just living this expensive lifestyle. Expensive and expensive also, right? Because they were robbing other smaller countries and islands and continents of resources. So I think this is definitely something that is in the movie also, and just in general, the idea of warfare, right? And like what it comes with and what it brings, and the aftermath, like what it leaves you with also, right? Trauma essentially, right? And pain and death also, right? And the opposite of prosperity, and all those things, they were mentioned also by the Odysseus, and I'm sure this is quotes from the Odyssey, from Homer's actually masterpiece book, right? I think it's also there, obviously. Colonialism and warfare go side by side, right? It's and actually how the war was won even, right? So this war, Trojan War, how it was won by deception, right? So they tricked people, and they basically masked those ill intentions with the name of God, right? Because when the gift of Trojan horse was given to the city of Troy, it was said that it's a gift in the name of Athena or someone, right? In the name of a god or something like this. And at the time, people were actually honoring the gods, right? And of course, they taken this gift, and we all know how it all ended, right? Okay, so the next point, which character, right? So on one of those islands, so first island was Cyclops. So this Cyclops actually was, I think it brings us to the craftsmanship part, but I think it was a well-executed scene with the Cyclops. I think minimum CGI, right? And it was kind of unsettling when we saw how slow the Cyclops was, but also how powerful he was, and not only physically, but also that he was able to trap those men and escape for a couple of days, right? They were thinking how to escape. And also it was very interesting because they were trying first to blind him, right? So they wanted to hit him with a sword in his eye to make him blind. But then they realized that he covered the entrance of a cave with a rock, and only this Cyclops with his force can move the rock. So they were like, you know what, no, we gotta wait until he actually wakes up and opens the entrance, then we gotta do something. It was an interesting aspect, right? Because in this situation you would probably panic and you were like, oh, we gotta just kill him, right? And then you will just trapped forever in this cave. I mean, there is food there, but I mean, they're trying to get home, right? It's not a part of the mission to be trapped in this cave with this shape forever, right? Till the end of times. It's that's not the point. And that was the first challenge, right? Odysseus, even though he was already going through some kind of transformation, because the scene that transformed him, it was when they entered the Troy and when they ravaged the city, when they were killing women, children, men, everyone, they destroying the statues, right? So I think at that moment, something happened to him, because we had a sneak sort of peek of this sequence throughout different stages in the movie. It was Matt Damon on the stairs, looking looking at the head of a statue just chopped and it was falling on the stairs. And then later in the end of the movie, we saw the whole, when he kind of remembered it, we saw the whole sequence. And you can make an argument that when he was trying to get home, when he was on that island where the Cyclops was, he already maybe was thinking about, you know what, maybe we're doing something wrong actually. Maybe we need to stop with all this violence. But he still shot an arrow in this eye of the Cyclops and essentially blinded him, and he caused the curse of Poseidon or something like this. That's what his crew member told him later, is that by hurting Cyclops, he also brought anger of Poseidon, and that's why no one made it, Loki. Besides Odysseus, of course, no one made it through this journey. And on one of those islands they met this witch, right? And it was a weird island because they saw, when they were approaching the hut of the witch, they saw the animals, big cats, apex predators, who didn't try to attack them, and it was very strange, right? So, and then later when the crew actually had a mutiny or something, right? And they said, you know what, Odysseus, you're not going with us because we don't trust you anymore. You brought the anger of gods onto us, and you know what, now you gotta wait and just, Odysseus still went hunting, and when he killed one of the deers, he saw the deer, when deer died, turned into a human, and he was like, what the fuck is this, right? So this is some kind of magic stuff. And maybe at that time he already suspected something. And this is, by the way, there's going to be a spoiler in the beginning, because I'm spoiling a lot of parts of the movie, even though still, if you're going to listen to it, if you're going to watch it and you read already the Odyssey, then you already have a spoiler, right? So it's not like it's all about how he shows you, how he actually brings all those scenes to life. That's what's important. His artistic expression of the director and of course the actors, and still the movie is worth a watch, I think, in my opinion. So anyway, and this witch, what does this character actually represents, right? It's definitely a hurt woman, right? So you can say in a way that it's a woman that was hurt by men, right? Maybe was hurt by war also, right? You can say that this is the type of mentality, type of behavior that can be produced by the type of behavior that his soldiers exercised in Troy, let's say, right? So let's say that they spared maybe a life of one of those women, right? Who they didn't kill or rape, which wasn't shown in the movie, but we all know that these things are happening when war is going on. So you can say that the person like this might have survived those events and had a trauma after this, right? And for some reason was given this power by gods to turn men into animals, or you can say to bring out their true nature. And basically, definitely, what is the type of this person? It's a hurt person, obviously, right? And it's a person that was hurt severely by men and was not able to find any forgiveness in their heart, right? So they were exercising just vengeance and revenge. And she turned all of the crew members to pigs, right? Which will be very, some of the, in our culture right now that we live in, you can say that there are culture wars, you can say that there are gender wars also, right? And you have a lot of women that come in from this narrative. You can justify their behavior because those things, they do take place. Men hurt women, right? And vice versa. But obviously, I think you can say it's a different type of hurt, damage, and also it's disproportionate, I think. So anyway, this type of witch character, you can say that, that's what it represents in this movie. Because in other movies, right, like in his name, Robert Eggers, his type of witch, right, he also shows you that it's a reaction to the norms or behavior of society at that time, right? It's a why this person became like this, right? It's not just because they're evil or they want to do something, It's just a reaction to trauma, let's say, or some kind of pain that was experienced by this person. So this witch, definitely, she tries to do the same to Odysseus, right? But by that time, he already kind of understands that something is not right here. Some spooky is going on. So he's not definitely eating that stew. It was a great scene, by the way. Those soldiers eating those stew and already realizing that something is very, very wrong. They were not able to stop eating. So they were stuffing this, I don't know what was a beef, boiled beef into their throats. And it was a little bit unsettling, I would say, right? So in a way that Cyclops was a little bit unsettling, this witch situation was also a little bit unsettling because you could feel that this woman, she has malice in her heart, right? And you can say rightful vengeance, but still she's kind of retaliate. Even though those men, they didn't really try to kind of hurt her, right? You can say that they were hungry, they just wanted to eat, so you can say that there was gluttony involved or something like this, but they didn't try to violate her, right? Maybe, we didn't know, maybe they would have tried after, dinner, we never know. But anyway, Odysseus kind of reasons with her, and he convinces her to turn those men back into human shape, and they just leave peacefully, right? Because obviously all those men, they were turned to pigs, they already scared shitless, because they thought that they could just forever until the end of time remain in his body, and then maybe even slaughtered for the food for some new man who would come to that witch's hut. So yeah, the witch character, right? Portrayal of a hermit also, right? This witch is obviously a hermit, a woman whose anger might be righteous and even legislated by gods. That's what Odysseus says to one of his members when they live in the hut. He's like, "You're not gonna kill her," and he's like, "You know what? God's given her. Who give her those powers to turn men into animals, right? It's definitely God. So it's like this for a reason." Basically is what he's saying, right? So it's not in my power to change that. It's like it's in God's will. She's stuck in the revenge mode, you can say, right? So hurt, definitely not able to forgive and move on, and every man she meets proves her right, maybe in a way, right? In this case, they didn't try to violate her. I'm pretty sure some other men before who she turned into animals, they tried to violate her, I'm pretty sure. But those specific men that were showed to us, right? They didn't. However, the way they were eating, maybe, right? And maybe they were brutish, and obviously she knew that they are soldiers, and by default, she assumed that there were criminals also, right? So in her right, yeah, they proved her point. And maybe she had a right to do that. Anyway, next point. So soul searching, right? And I'm jumping a little bit, right? Because it's already a little bit about but even though it's woven into the movie, those scenes on the beach with Calypso, where he's trying to regain his memory. Also notice how those scenes were in a specific color palette. Everything was color coded, and it was more of a sand color and more of a beige color, and everything was more about trying to it was like a resort. It was like a guy went to Thailand or somewhere, to just kind of find, or to the Tibet mountains to try to soul search, to try to understand what is the meaning of life. It's like he experienced a crisis or trauma, and he's trying to kind of regain sort of something, understanding of this world or some kind of consciousness. That's how I resonated with this. It was like a rehab for him, even though he was self-medicating and he was intoxicated, you can say, during this rehab. So it was not it was a resort where you also take drugs, low-key, right? And you just cannot remember who you are, what happened to you, and where you need to go, actually. So he spent 7 years there or something. 7 years. Shout out to my boy Skrilla. So yeah, on soul searching therapy, plant-based medicine, and oblivion also. I think that was what was communicated in those scenes, because that woman, of course, she helped him, but also she gave him this lotus flower, which kind of is basically an opium, is a drug, is fent. It's it's that, Zanny bar or something, basically equivalent of that, right, for those times. And it made him happy, but also oblivious. So he couldn't really remember what happened to him. And but he was healing, obviously, right? His body has been healing, and he recovered completely from those injuries. But his mind, right, and Calypso was saying to him that I wanted, it's like you were eating those flowers. It's like I wasn't really at that point feeding by force, I feed them to you by force. You were eating them willingly, so I didn't stop it because you were happy and I was also happy. So it was a little bit also like Woman in Dunes. It reminded me also even the color-coded situation, and Charlize Theron, she was not hysterical and this kind of woman that were lying in order to keep this man by her side, but it was a little bit something like a Woman in Dunes. Anyone, if you watch that movie, if you haven't watched that movie, this one is actually a kind of cinema. I don't know if Odyssey will ever become a cinema, but Woman in Dunes, it's a cinema, obviously, and it felt to me that I found some parallels between that movie and that scene from Odyssey where Calypso was taking care of him on the beach. No sex scenes. He was loyal. No, I think Matt Damon, obviously, they cracked. Okay, so obviously they were but they didn't show it to us because, like, you know what, they wanted to say that he still has some dignity and the memories of his wife, and like, you know, that type of level of intimacy that was achieved with her, it would cannot be repeated with Charlize Theron, because like it's obviously a different setting. He doesn't remember anything, and it more of a, like I told you, a drug infused kind of resort type energy. So that was some other point that I found in the movie, because in the culture, in the modern culture, also all those things, they are like reiterated, they're like popping up here and there. People are talking about plant-based medicine, people are talking about psilocybin, people are talking about ayahuasca, all those things, right? You go somewhere into people are going to Bali, people are going to Asia to maybe understand something about themselves, to kill the ego, like all those things, right? So it's like I think it's kind of referenced in that movie, also in that scene. Okay, so and next point, number 6, and after that I'm gonna take a quick break. So what's happening there? Agamemnon, right? So this character, he's like very polarizing character, because even though he's like on a side of a good guys, right? Because obviously there are no good guys in the movie. In my opinion, even Odysseus, I think he's not a good guy. He's like just a person who goes through this series of like revelations, transformations, right? Luckily, in the end, he's able to self-reflect and understand that he was not doing anything good, actually, right? So some things that he done in his life that you can say morally are sound and good, but the war aspect of it, right? It was definitely like something that you should be proud of, and you should reassess it and like reflect and shed a tear, and you know what, change your ways and honor the dead, obviously, right? That's what he's doing at the end of the movie with his wifey. They living, you know, the youngsters, they living like the kids at home alone, and they just going on to that kind of honeymoon part 2. I commend them for that, for sure. You gotta keep the marriage spicy, especially a marriage where one of spouses was absent for like 9-10 years or something like this. Definitely, you know what, you reunite, you gotta also go somewhere. So Agamemnon, he's played by Benny Safdie, I think. There are 2 of them, so I don't know which one is which, but I think it's Benny Safdie, the one who doesn't have any allegations, the one who's actually still, you know, a part of this industry. Okay, I'm not gonna talk too much, but I have to mention their movies, okay? And I have to mention the pattern of those movies that they're making, and I think it's a very specific new type of cinema, that genre that they created, because it is a little bit, it resembles a little bit a movie like Good Time, or even like their latest offering, which is Marty Supreme. They have something similar in the way that doubling or sampling that like old school comedy vibe of a movie, that just feel good vibe, like comfy movie type vibe, like late 80s, early 90s American production. Maybe even like just 90s in general. So those type of movies, it felt like very warm and cozy to watch them, rewatch them, right? Because there was certain type of comedy there that just felt like they're tapping into some kind of like DNA type script writing. You know, it's something essential they're tapping into. And with Benny and with Safdie brothers movies, it felt like this sometimes. However, if you look at it more like precisely, their movies are very specific in terms of their story and in terms of how everything unfolds, and in terms of the characters that are there. Main characters in their movies, they're always very corrupt, and the things that are doing in the movie, they are sort of surviving. They are very like pragmatic. They are not noble heroes. They are driven by their desires, dabbling into expansive mindset and behavior that is very immoral, I would say, right? So this is something that I noticed from the very first movie that I watched by them, Uncut Gems, Good Time, Marty Supreme, some other movies that I made. In all of those movies, like think about Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler obviously delivering a dramatic performance, but also in this movie, he's like a guy who's trying to get by, who's lying to a lot of people and eventually dies because he was trying to do too much, basically. So the type of character that they introduced to the movie, and even Marty Supreme also, it's a very ambiguous character, morally corrupt, ambiguous character, and he's delusional, this very like, I don't want to bring other things into this, but I'll just insinuate his like whole philosophy is like, I'm just going to manifest my reality, and I'm just going to block all these like things that I'm afraid of, and maybe like things that connect me to failure, I'll just block them out and I'll just focus on things that will get me to my goal, which is very subjective, very egotistical. Things will just, I'll be lucky. This delusional self-confidence. And some of the other characters in their previous movies, they also display this sort of, I'm just going to gamble, I'm going to put a lot on a line, and somehow I'll just believe that I will make it out of it. And they are surviving also, all those characters. So this is something that I noticed in their movies. And the character that Benny Safdie plays, the Agamemnon, this version of Agamemnon, you can say that he's also corrupt morally, because he's ready to sacrifice a lot of people who have kids, who have children, when they're not joking about it and saying, you know what, if something will happen to my kid, me and my wife, we can always make another one, right? So who cares? It's sort of like cynical, dark humor type energy. If we're not joking, right? I think all people that I've ever talked to and ever heard talking about parenthood, they're saying that something changes in you when you're having a child, right? When you have a child, you live for your child now. Not like, doesn't mean that you will destroy your own life, right? But like you will definitely take some cuts and you will take some sacrifices here and there, maybe minor, maybe major, depends on the person, right? In order for your child to prosper. You can say it's a good parent and bad parent, it doesn't matter. I'm just talking for this argument, it doesn't matter, right? So I'm just talking about the fact that a lot of parents, they're saying that, okay, now I have a child, everything changes. I want to live for this little cute human, right? It's like, it's everything for me now. And the fact that this character, Agamemnon, he was able to sacrifice his own child in order for him, right, to prevail, and you can say for his country to win the war, but essentially he's a general basically, right? So if he wins, like if the country wins, he wins also, and he's able to sacrifice his child in order to win the war, in order to be victorious, and in order to reap all the glory, all the what is Clara, something, all the benefits. You can say that this is very egotistical, very pragmatic, very materialistic behavior, and morally corrupt from the traditional standpoint, right? Because in different cross cultures, you'd say that children are sacred, you cannot kill children, you cannot sacrifice children. But this is a different, I'm only going to insinuate, I'm not going to say anything. So the fact that Benny Safdie was casted for this character who displays this type of behavior, I think it was very interesting casting decision, right? He nailed this character, I think, even though he didn't show his face a lot. I think we didn't even see his face because he was always in the helmet, or he was like facing the camera with his back, right? Like in the scene where he was stabbed by his wife, from what I understand, because she couldn't really. The mother, when mother loses a child, right? It's different. She wasn't able to take it on the chin and forget about it, make another baby with Agamemnon. Lupita was not ready for baby number 2 with Benny Safdie, okay? She was traumatized, she killed him, didn't forgive him. And something that is interesting about the character of Agamemnon, you can say that he represents some kind of darkness, right? Even though that he is fighting on the side of Odysseus, right? And you can say Odysseus is a different type of character, but it was already blatantly said in the movie before that, right? That Odysseus's values are more family values, and he's a man who's more of a family value, right? But Agamemnon is a man that values ego, power, and those things himself, you can say, even, right? Maybe greater things, maybe his country, his nation or something, right? But definitely not his family, because he showcases this behavior where he sacrifices his own offspring in order to achieve essentially glory and power. So I think it's a very interesting he was casted for this, right? Because definitely even though he's fighting on Odysseus' side, the character that Benny Safdie is playing, he represents lack of humanity, ruthlessness, right? Lack of compromise, cunningness, ambition, monstrosity. Visually, right? How everyone's saying that he's like a Batman in the movie, right? But basically, what is the point of Batman costume? It's to cast fear, right, into the minds and eyes of the opponent. And the type of armor that he was wearing in the movie, it was, if you put this in a different setting in the movie, you would probably assume that this is a villain, because he's wearing all black, doesn't show his face, and he's very kind of menacing in the way he moves. He's very tall, occupies a lot of space, and he moves like, in the darkness, like in wearing black and dark clothes and armor. So I definitely think that he represents ambition, monstrosity, and I think it's very interesting. Okay, and that's the end of the first part of the breakdown, and this is the intermission time. Oh, wow. Oh. I actually came back to record the second part of this. Okay, for those of you who are still here, let's continue. So that was the 6 points that I wanted to cover about this. And the last one was about this, the Agamemnon character. Agamemnon. Okay, so definitely like a spooky guy, right? Spooky character. Just so you can have some perspective. Sometimes when, is it non or mnon? I'm gonna sneeze. Confirmation sneeze. Okay, so what are we doing here? So technically Dune is the sequel to this. This is the scene that everyone is talking about, like the aura farming. Also, like someone said like later, like look how thin these gates are. And it's kind of like true, I think, because like imagine like you have like allegedly 700 people on the other side of the gate, like knocking on it or something. But oh, wait a second, they were not knocking on it, right? Because it was a stealth operation. Shout out to my boy Sam Fisher. It was stealth operation. But what I'm trying to tell you is like at that point they already started like fighting. There was already like a fight inside the walls, and while they were opening the gates already, like they were shot at like by the guards and by the military people from the Troy. So at this point you just can't break this effing gates because they're so thin. Like the doors of the gates, look at this, they're so thin. Someone pointed it out and I was like, damn, that's kind of like true. Like you could have just broke it down, like, or like with this kind of like this hammer for the door or something. That was a big scene in the movie, and there was actually, like, believe it or not, but during some of those scenes, like where characters were like fighting or like they were doing something, the music with the visuals together, it created really a suspense. Like really, I was sitting there really like, damn, like I was not like open the gates faster or something like this, because some people who go to the movies, they react like this. They're literally like, you know, it's like they start rooting for the characters, like doing this. I mean, maybe someone was doing it, but at the end of the day, my point is that the movie actually forces you almost to kind of immerse in this atmosphere, and you kind of feel like the urgency, like, guys, you better open the gate faster, because like, and that's like a marker for me to if it's a good movie, because this is a feeling when you start to, when the director invites you to participate in this, like, not a travesty, but participate in this event, right? And that's how he paced it. Time-wise and action-wise, and he kind of invites you to this story, to be a part of it, to experience these emotions. Of course, while they're filming it, it's different completely, and then they're edited, it's different, and then in the end, like, it's so yeah, but still it's working. What I'm trying to tell you is that it worked, actually. Like, when I was watching it in the movie, I was like, damn, you better open it faster. So yeah, that's the edits already with Agamemnon. Look at this, right? So how this character is portrayed, it doesn't look like he's a friendly guy. It almost feels like it's like this type of like a villain general. It's like Darth Vader or something like this type of figure. But anyway, that's him in Oppenheimer, obviously. No disrespect to Benny Safdie. Bro, he looks better with the helmet on. Let's keep going. Anyways, that's Anora, by the way. That's very weird because I mentioned that movie. Off top also. Oh, that was not in the movie. So I think something about this movie is that you actually, I think this is the type of movie that you can go actually to see just because of the visuals. Because the locations, what? Because the locations, this is the witch changing the faces of man to pigs. The movie was definitely shot in Greece, Morocco, Iceland, Italy, and even Scotland, I think. The hell was Iceland, I think, or Scotland or something. Because it was very misty, very foggy, and it was a beach that looked, it was not Copacabana or something like that. I think you should go watch the movie. You see, that's the point. That was the point of the whole video. I'm trying to make you go and watch the movie. I think it's just beautiful locations. And because of the fact that he's so dedicated to the realism, Nolan, they obviously shot in all those locations. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful nature, and it looks amazing. I think I want to rewatch it on the IMAX because of also this. Just because of visual, it will be so good to see everything on a bigger screen. How Nolan intended. Okay, so let's go to the 7 point. No remorse even in hell, right? So this point kind of connects to Agamemnon again, because his character, right? So Odysseus, after all that he's done, you can say that he changed, right? So even though he killed like a lot of people when he came back home, point is what they were kind of bad people already, right? We knew that because they were trying to harass his family, and also like, you know, beat up his servant, kicked his dog out, and like wanted to kill the dog. They caused a lot of harm, this unwanted guests. His revenge was justified in this case. But for Agamemnon, the situation is like, what do you mean, like no remorse even in hell? So when Odysseus speaks to him, first he speaks to Elliot Page, and Elliot Page was like, you lied to me when we were doing the Trojan horse stuff, and basically I didn't know that I'm gonna die, basically, right? And he's telling him that, you know what, if I told you, had I told you, you wouldn't have agreed to this, so it was a part of the plan, and we won because of you. It's like, without you we wouldn't have won the war. And he's asking to honor his death and honor his men that died, that lost their lives there, basically. That's his wish. Amazing scene, also great dialogue. I think you can definitely see, let's just talk a little bit about acting, but even though it's the next point, you could see the gap in quality between Tom Holland, for example, Matt Damon, right? Or even between, even bigger gap between Tom Holland and the guy who played the blind servant. Let's also find his name because I feel bad, because he's also an actor that I've seen in a lot of movies. Big role also for this guy, John Leguizamo. Ryan Hurst, this guy from Sons of Anarchy, right? Okay, so John Leguizamo. This guy is 66 years old. That's how he looks. It's a legend. I'll call him a legend. He's a legendary actor who, look at this, he was in that movie. Can you imagine that? Like, how many, 30 years ago he was in this movie? I'll say it's a classic. Come on, John Wick, Carlito's Way with Pacino. I mean, this guy is insane. Like, those who watch actually movies, they you know about this guy, so I'm not gonna, like, you know, he had a birthday, by the way, July 22, so happy belated birthday to this guy. Which is like Cancer. Cancers are actually very crafty, like people, they dedicated to their craft. They're true craftsmen and artisans. So you can see that this guy holds this craft dear, close to his heart. He had a great performance as Eumaeus. I don't know how to pronounce that. Basically, amazing performance. And what my point was, actually, why I'm bringing this up, is that there was a huge gap in quality in terms of acting between Tom Holland, Zendaya, I mean, these younger actors, and even Robert Pattinson. I gotta tell you, Robert Pattinson was so much better than Tom Holland and Zendaya. They're literally kids. I'm so sorry to say that, but they're, in terms of craft, in terms of acting, they're just big. They're just starting out. It's up to them if they want to become like greats, you know, and just really go into this rabbit hole of acting. But I can tell you that, I'm sorry. Look, this John Leguizamo was in What Do You Mean, Justin Bieber? Come on, guys. This guy was in iconic movies, I'm telling you. Ice Age. He was voice of the Sith. Can you imagine that? And imagine like this experience that this guy has, like at 66 years old. I wish him more years of acting, and he can definitely, his biggest role is it's in the future, because this was amazing performance by him. I think you could definitely fill the gap between, you know, in pure craft. It was not that good acting by Zendaya and Tom Holland. I'm so sorry. Especially in the first part of the movie, I was cringing a lot at Tom Holland, because like I just couldn't believe him, you know. There is this kind of Stanislavski guy, like, and there is this sort of his approach to acting. It's like, I believe you or I don't believe you. It's like, and I just couldn't believe him as an actor portraying this character. I was in a lot of like, and it makes the whole experience just uncomfortable, because you're looking at someone, and it basically builds a wall. He was in Miami Vice. Can you imagine it, in TV series in '86? Insane. In Die Hard 2, he was, oh my goodness, this guy is a legend. Anyway, he was in Madonna. He was playing Madonna's friend in Borderline music video. Let's watch that. It's up to these actors to figure out if they actually want to go crazy on acting and become like greats, and leave this legacy, and have respect of the audience and of the peers. But yeah, they gotta continue, because it was not convincing. At some point, it was already not super important, and the amount of influence and the amount of screen time that they had, it was not so dramatic. In this case, you could just like let it slide, because like they were not the focal point of the movie, is what I'm trying to tell you. Just the same with Elliot Page, even though Elliot Page actually killed it. He killed it in this part where it was in hell. Amazing performance. But those two actors, like for them, it's like, I think that's a smart move by Nolan. It's like he put all these like hype actors. Only Timothy wasn't there, right? So he put all those hype actors there, but he didn't make it about them. So for those people who actually rate cinema and who would see the flaw, you would not focus on it too much. Like for me, for example, I'm very critical when I'm watching something. I don't like it, I don't believe it, I'll call it out. It will just create this dissonance, like this distortion in my perception, in my eyes. So I was definitely like feeling it a little bit in the beginning because Tom Holland had a lot of screen time in the beginning. Zendaya, she popped up a little bit and here and there, but I feel like she's playing kind of the same character she plays in Euphoria or something. Like her range, emotional. It's like, I don't know, sure, I'm not sold on her. I'm sorry. And then Spider-Man, she's doing just this kind of joke girlfriend that kind of also cries sometimes. This weird kind of like Gen Z like romance, whatever. I don't understand. But it felt like she's just playing the same character. It's like in Dune, she has the most stoic character, but there it feels like she's also lacking some kind of depth or like expression. I don't know how to explain it, but like you look at even who was there. I mean, Robert Pattinson, right? He was playing a villain basically in this movie, but you look at him and you can see like he really kind of feels like this character, and it feels like you're talking to this guy, like, you know, like the guy in real life, the guy who thinks like this, who acts like this, it feels like he looks like this, he behaves like this. With Matt Damon, I mean, he's just a pro, right? Very experienced actor, and he nailed it. And his role was very like kind of masculine, traditional, like very, I mean, he was crying, I guess, here and there, but in general, he was just like Jason Bourne, but more like humane or something. So crazy fighter, like a leader, right? But also like he has a humane side to him. And Hathaway, right? So she was very. I think her best bit was when I think she was talking to Tom Holland. When he came back already, like his daddy saved him, and he came back, and you know, at that point I think he still didn't know that his father, but he came back. Odysseus told him that you got to tell your mom, right? You got to tell Anne Hathaway, so she got to remarry, because like he had to set this whole plot in motion, right? And basically when this dialogue before the ceremony, before the trial ceremony, when Tom Holland was talking to Anne Hathaway, and she didn't broke character, but she actually kind of like showed a very like this viper-esque venomous like emotion. Like you could see that she's not a ruler, she's not really like a type of queen that can rule the kingdom, because she's just wants her man back. That's it, that's all she's thinking about, and she pissed off because of that. She has she's experiencing complex emotions, but at the same time you can feel that she's pissed off. She just want to burn everything down. It's like this kind of female like version of like, I'm done with this shit. Like it's like burn everything to the ground. It's like it's a very intense emotion that can maybe change a little bit later, right? But in the moment it's super intense, and it's like just kill them all type of energy, you know? And I think it was a great from her, because she really like freaked out, and she rushed to the balcony or something. So she stopped the dialogue. She stopped the conversation in the middle and just rushed off. And you could feel like this kind of like she's ready to just like, rah. So I think it was a great performance by her. Tom Holland, you could argue, you could judge him, but because his character goes through a certain type of transformation. He starts as like this kind of like a boy, and then he finishes as more like a man sort of. But still, you could feel that Tom Holland was trying to show you this, but still it's like, I don't know, it's just something didn't click. And thank God, like he didn't have a lot of screen time, and Zendaya also. I mean, I'm sure if they continue acting, they're gonna become great actors. But right now, at this day and at this time, it's like it's very good that this type of movie didn't really focus on them too much. They didn't have too much of screen time. They had enough time to just say their lines and like, you know, get the movie going. But at the same time, they were not the focus of the movie. And this is very good in my opinion. It's a very smart move from a director when you know you have like a younger talent, or maybe for some reason you have some people who you just have to cast, if that makes sense. Because in Hollywood, we don't know how things are going there. If you're making a movie with this kind of like huge budget, right? It's like a huge story that has to be like biggest movie of the year type shit. Maybe you have to cast Zendaya, right? Maybe you have to cast Tom Holland. Maybe you have to cast Timothy or someone, right? Like this. So in this case, I think maybe he had to do it, but anyway, I think he was very smart about it, and I think it worked, because these people who were, you could see like the gap, right? They didn't really ruin the movie. Elliot Page even like compensated, and he was, even great, I would say. in that scene in hell. And the other actors who were younger talent, they just kind of had limited time, and where they needed to joke a little bit, they joked, etc. But it was not like it didn't ruin the movie. If anything, what ruined the movie for me a little bit is the fact that this like last trial that they had, like this kind of weird like snake thing, like octopus thing that were pulling people from the ship. I didn't like it. It was weird because we never actually it was never visible fully to understand what was that creature at the end of the day. It was some weird thing that just appeared from a gap in a rock, just this, I don't know, reached with his tentacles, grabbed the ship members, the crew members, and just like killed them, like dragged them to this like cave. And was it octopus? Was it kraken or something? No, elephant or something. I don't understand what was that. I didn't like it because maybe that was, I mean, obviously that was CGI. Maybe that's why Nolan didn't want CGI in the movie, because it looked horrible, honestly. And what another thing that kind of ruined the movie for me a little bit is the final like battle, like the trial scene where Matt Damon went like Zack Snyder. Like it reminded me of that. Like first of all, it reminded me of Game of Thrones for some reason, and also it reminded me of Zack Snyder Batman, like where Ben Affleck was saving Martha Clark, right, from this people. Diane Lane, I think, right? She was playing her. He was rescuing from the warehouse. If you if you go to YouTube, there is like a Batman like warehouse fight scene. It reminded me for some reason of that like scene, but it definitely felt very Zack Snyder-ish, like this kind of fighting sequence, and it was a little bit dragged out. It felt like they were showing too much of killing, like, and he killed too many people. It was a bit already unrealistic. I know that's how it is written in the original story, but I think you could show just that was like he killing, and then like you could show that Rob Pattinson, he was trying to like be sneaky again, right, and to just stab him maybe, but still like he dies. Like the important thing there was to show that the vengeance is there, right, that he's very like physical and dominant, and also it was important to show that he was wounded and that his son helped him and that he killed Pattinson, right? That was the most important thing, and I think you could have like edited it in a way that it would be like, you know, more like Trimsky, because you don't need to show like all the fighting there. Maybe it was a little bit of like, I remember there was a movie by Ridley Scott about the knights, like they were fighting like for the honor of a woman. It was also, I think Matt Damon was in that movie, and it was such a weird movie because it was showing different like versions. It was a trial, like a court, I mean, and they were showing different versions of the events that happened, and in the end there was like a fight between knights, and it felt like the movie was like, you know, kind of like building something up, and in the end you have like this crazy, very like you know, action scene. Maybe he wanted to do the same thing. However, in the movie already there were fighting scenes, action scenes, like so. That doesn't make sense, and I think he could have made it shorter, because I was watching it and at that point I was already losing my patience a little bit. Mind you, in all other like throughout the whole movie before, I was really like locked in. I was like literally following the plot. I was like listening to the dialogues. I was like invested. But when this fight happened, like in the end, I was already like, oh my god, another one. They're gonna show us how he's killing another one. It's like, do we need that? Like the only kind of cool kill, I think, like that two really cool kills that I really enjoyed. It was the one where he blocked the attack and he countered with the arrow, like, and he was like stabbing multiple times, like someone in the belly, like with this arrow. And another kill, it was like with those like axes that were tied together to create this kind of like target for the arrow, space for the arrow to go in. And I think he picked up those like tied together two arrows, two axes, and he hit someone. And someone was blocking it with a shield, and the impact from the blow, it was so drastic that the person who was countering, who was defending with the shield, just like literally pushed him like 3 meters in one direction. I think it was really impressive. But besides that, I think some other kills, they could have been shorter. There was a point there where you could feel like, damn, is he gonna die? Like, I mean, Odysseus, because he's fighting too many opponents, and his son didn't help him, and other I don't know, people who kneeled before him, they didn't help him fight either. So he was literally alone against all those people, and yeah. Bro, is he in this video? It's crazy that Madonna dated Basquiat and Tupac. That's fake news. He's not in that. No, he's not in that. It was not him. Wait a second. Madonna. Ah, okay. So he's like, how it's called? Double, backstage, back, something. How do you call those people who are like extras, right? I think it's extra. Anyway, this guy was in the, shit, what was that? Romeo and Juliet. That movie is crazy, actually. It's Baz Luhrmann, I think, movie. But this is the one that I think people will remember. I don't think Elvis or even Great Gatsby, I don't think those movies will be remembered. But this one, yeah, it's like, personally, it's not my cup of tea. Baz Luhrmann, his style of storytelling, especially visual. But this movie is just like, I don't know, something is different. I think he caught some kind of like a vibe or over time or something. He tapped into some kind of energy there, and it worked. It just worked. Okay, Matt Damon, bro, I still don't trust you. A little bit too believable. No remorse even in hell, right? Let's go back to this Agamemnon situation. So what do you mean no remorse? Like, we talked already about his values, right? And the type of character that he is, even though he's kind of fighting for the good guys, right? Basically, when Matt Damon speaks to him in hell, first of all, he's surprised to see him there because, like, they killed you, bro. You also dead. And he's like, my mistake was like something like coming back without a disguise or something. So that kind of maybe tells you a little bit, right? So even in hell, this guy was not able to self-reflect to the point where he could have seen, where he was able to see his own shit, like his own misdoings and like his own like evil actions. Because basically he just regrets the fact that he came back to his home, like just how it is, like as a war hero that he expected to be a war hero. He said that, don't make my mistake, Odysseus, and when you come back, be in disguise. So can you imagine it, that there is no self-reflection, no ability to look at yourself, right? Honestly assess yourself and your past, and the only regret that you have is that it's not that you sacrificed all those people and that you like were driven by the power and ego, but your only regret is that you actually like openly came back home. You should have been under disguise, or so that you could have time and opportunity to assess the situation and understand that no one actually wants you there anymore, right? So for me, it was a little bit of a like, you know what, it only kind of plays into this my theory here that I presented to you, that Nolan just, maybe it's in a book like this also in Odyssey, I don't know, but it felt like this is the type of character that just doesn't have any capacity to self-reflect at all. Like, that's it. It's just like only thinks how to get what he wants basically, and doesn't care about the cost. It felt like that. And also that the story, right, just saying that he should have been more cunning basically, right, that he should have been in this guy's like low profile. Story is written and narrated by winners. I already said that, right? An alternative, more truthful version is suppressed. So when Tom Holland is being hosted in this John Bernthal and Lupita's place, right? First of all, we see John Bernthal just eating, right? And he's like very like rude and very like brutish. Even though you don't see him hurt anyone, even though his wife, Lupita, I think his wife, she has a scar on her face, which is very crazy. And you kind of wonder who caused this, right? But this guy, like Tom Holland asks about his father, right? About, tell me the story. And John Bernthal tells the story of Trojan horse, I think, if I'm not mistaken. When he's talking about Agamemnon, about Trojan War, about the horse, everything, about the siege, Lupita is actually trying to tell Tom Holland how it actually happened. And John Bernthal, he stops her, right? He like prevents her from revealing Tom Holland the full like truth, actually what happened and what type of person Agamemnon actually is, right? Sacrificing his own family, putting it on an altar of his own glory, basically. Okay, so coming of age and a huge quality gap between newer actors and old-timers, right? Already said it. Younger actors lack skill and emotion, it feels like, which only can be, I guess, some people, they're just not meant to do certain job, okay, and it's just, you can just see it, and some people have humility to step down, and some people, they just keep pushing. Eventually maybe they tap into something inside of them that lets them perform at the highest level, but sometimes it never happens, and they're just doomed to play the same role like in every next project. In this case, we don't know, but definitely there was a huge gap, and you could see it, and these younger actors, they just cannot portray or express complex or relatable like emotions, believable emotions. They just are not able to do that. I'm so sorry, but it is what it is. And of course, also if you kind of like tie this to the plot of the movie and to the overall kind of message of the movie, at the end, the older generation leaves, right? So we understand that the kingdom will be in the hands of Tom Holland, right? And his sort of generation. There is something also there, like elders leave space to the young people to develop fully, because you cannot fully develop if you are always near your parent, let's say, right, or near like a mentor or something. At some point you have to break away, you have to experience something yourself, and you have to find your own voice, sort of, so in this case, kind of metaphorical also, that they sail into the sunset, right, and they leave behind Tom Holland, like a younger generation basically, who will be they pass the torch, sort of pass the baton to this younger generation, and it's their responsibility now, basically. It's up to them. But also it's weird considering the whole thing about the, kind of this depressing message about the end of the age. So yeah, even though I told you that it takes like 1,000 years to, after like the events of Trojan War, it's like 1,000 years until the actual like Iron Age like kicks in, where the Roman Empire becomes very powerful, even like 200 years later, to be honest, from that. But anyway, okay, so reference to the end of Age of Bronze, reiteration, beginning of a new era. Okay, I already talked about it, right? We come into this point now. It's funny that I naturally just talked about it without even looking at the bullets or at the plan. I don't know what to add here. I think I said pretty much everything I wanted about it. I think it's metaphor for something. I don't think that Nolan just really just wanted the audience to know for sure that this is a Bronze Age and it's about to collapse. I think it was used to show you that all those things, they're about to change. One thing. And also maybe it was some of the situations or some of the characters, they foreshadowed maybe the future a little bit, like what will change, that everyone will become more transactional and pragmatic, maybe, right? And this kind of like ideals of the past and this kind of days of glory are kind of low-key behind a little bit. So I think it was metaphorical for sure. I'm not sure that Nolan is the type of director who's like wants his audience to learn a history lesson, at expense of his like of believability and realism of his own characters in his own project. And I think that was his plan. Okay, so next point, that he uses the timeless classic. Oh, that's a big point, by the way. It should have been the last one probably, but it's okay. But what are the bullets also? Look at this. Travis Scott straight up, and it's late ad-libs.
Straight up, a man. Straight up, a trick to break the walls of Troy.
That was a crazy night. That's spooky, actually. This t-shirt is kind of spooky because it actually like shows you like a process of transitioning from one dimension to another. And that's what basically happens when people die. See you on the other side. Yeah. Okay, so this is different conversation. Like, I don't know. I don't want to make it about that, but it's out there. Okay, so let's go back to this, right? So visual beauty and craftsmanship. I think I touched on this a little bit already in the middle of this, but the bigger point is that definitely it's a beautiful project, and they had a lot of resources to make this come to life, and the locations that they picked, they're amazing, and it's visually very beautiful movie. I gotta admit, those islands where Odysseus with the crew were landing back to back, they were also like beautiful. It was amazing, like forests there, fields, and like beaches, and like just very, very beautiful nature. And those like the hell location. It was mysterious and dark and haunting and very cold also. And then you had like this the home, the Ithaca and stuff, like also great nature. And I don't know, it's just very nice. And if anyone hasn't been to this Greece or like what is it, west coast of like west part of Turkey, where actually Troy was, it was there. You got to go there because it's just beautiful. Like all those things, it's like literally like some kind of, I don't know how to explain this type of nature. I'm not sure that they have this anywhere else. I think all this Mediterranean sort of agency, this is where it's at, like low key. So it's beautiful, absolutely. So visual beauty and craftsmanship for sure. So I think definitely Christopher Nolan is also a very skilled craftsman, and I think he tries to work with similar people. And you can say that I don't think he's obsessed with movies, but he's just very good at making very solid movies, you know? I don't think he's good at making like an independent, sort of like more like self-imploding, more like self-reflecting, more like, you know, private, more not serious, but more like super deep psychological movies. I don't think he's good at that, but I'll give it to him. He can make a big movie. He can make like a blockbuster type movie, and he can make it still feel watchable. Like it will not be stupid, it will not be like cringeworthy. It will be a little bit maybe too serious from time to time, but at the end of the day, there will be some kind of moral there. There will be amazing visuals, audio, so you can expect all those things already, like a pre-packaged sort of. Even if the movie will kind of let you down, the story wise, like Tenet, for example, for me, I can still say that visually it's a pretty movie, right? And the audio there, it's also good. So some of the things in his movies, they never drop. Actually, he holds the certain bar, and sometimes he also over delivers, like, or maybe he hits like bullseye or something. Like you can say that he done it with Inception or Interstellar. Some people will say that Oppenheimer. For me personally, no. And with Odyssey, I think he hit that same bullseye. I think one of his better movies for sure. I think you can say that Interstellar, Odyssey can be, still people will say Interstellar is it's bigger in terms of enjoyment that I had from watching the movie. I would put them on the same shelf, I guess. I think same tier for me. I'm not a huge Nolan fan. I watched a lot of his movies. I even watched like The Insomnia, I think. Is it with Al Pacino, this movie? So, and Memento, I think I watched also. Pretty familiar with his work, and I can say that those movies definitely, they are like, also how he was able to scale his craft, right? Because from lower budget movies, from the smaller projects, he was able to scale everything up to the point where he is making like the top movie of the year. I think it will be, I'm pretty sure it will be the biggest movie of the year. Okay, and let's go back to this. So I already kind of gave you a little bit of a review. There will be no like a number or something. I just say that I enjoyed the movie, and I told you which parts I didn't really enjoy, but in general, I think it's a good movie. I will rewatch it for sure. I want to rewatch it on IMAX and have my excuse, right, to eat popcorn again and drink some Coke Classic. No paper straws. This time I will not repeat that mistake again. So number 10 also, let's go back to this and let's kind of finish with this bullet. So what does it say here? Nolan uses the timeless classic that barely can be compromised or doubted. All this stuff, it's like a clause, defining clause, right? But a classic. So Nolan uses timeless classic, and this classic barely can be compromised, doubted, or even criticized, because everyone kind of agrees that it's a timeless piece of literature, right? And no one will say like, some people will go like, and you know what, let's apply post-capitalist Marxist theory to Odyssey or something like this. Some people will do that for sure, but I'm just saying that in general, as a fiction, right, let's say, because some people will say it's a non-fiction, it's a historical event that described in a poem. I'm not sure, I don't know. I'm just saying that it's a piece of literature that is available. You can go and kind of, the fact that it stood the test of time, is older than the Bible, allegedly, right? And people still reading it and admire it. It's like treated as like a Shakespeare, and Homer is like Homer is like a father. Some people will say, right, that this is like a origin of literature or something like this. I'm pretty sure. So basically what he does, right, Nolan, in this day and age, in this cultural background that we are living in right now, right, with all those agendas, with all this stuff that's going on, right, in the culture, like gender wars, culture wars, identity politics, like all those things that are happening right now, right, and the amount of angry people that we have, right, and the amount of people who feel like they're misrepresented, and like people who feel like they deserve to have a louder voice and all this stuff, right? So in this time that we are living in right now, where also tradition is being challenged and where the revisionism is very popular, he chooses this story, which is a timeless classic that can barely be compromised or doubted, even criticized, right? Because everyone, basically, the whole Western civilization agrees that this is like origin of something important, right? This book, the story, it's in the origins, it's in the beginning of someone will say even like our civilization, something like this, right? Because of the values, right? Because of the story, because of the idea that basically is being broadcasted, transmitted through this piece of literature. So basically, he picks this story, right, a timeless classic that you will not see a lot of people going against Homer. You will see people going against Nolan for making this movie and for the way that he interpreted the story, right? But you will not see a lot of people going at Homer and saying like, you know what, this motherfucker, like he got us fucked up because like he's like white man, like who just like, it's like all those things. I don't think it will be applied to Homer, right? Because I mean, the guy kind of like already said what he wanted to say and he's long gone already, right? And basically he uses Nolan now in this day and age, he uses this story to bring back the elite storytelling and plot, in my opinion. Why I say elite storytelling and plot? Because the story of Odyssey and also Iliad, right, and other things that Homer wrote, he wrote them like many, many years ago. So basically, from the events from Trojan War to now, it's like almost 4,000 years or something like this. If you rely on the history books and all this information that is written there, keeping in mind that history was written by the winners, right? He basically brings back elite storytelling and plot because like I told you in the beginning, in a lot of movies that I've seen recently, like this past 5 maybe years, a lot of those movies that are not based on a book or on something more like substantial, even those that are based on a previous work, that based on a book or based on something else, like you can argue that Wuthering Heights or I don't know, some other movies, right, even Nosferatu, you can argue that it's not super, you can argue that this movie will not be a timeless classic. You can argue that this movie is a little bit like low effort sort of movie, or maybe like a movie that focused on too much on certain one aspect of a cinema in general. Like with Eggers, for example, with Nosferatu, in my opinion, he focused too much on visuals and on like depicting this sort of like, and research and visual. I think he just geeked out on that. But the acting and sort of the story, we know the story. It's a story of a vampire, right? It's Dracula, it's Nosferatu, it's also like some other stories similar, but the acting there, it was like, I'm not sure, I was not sold on that. And in some other movies, the storytelling and the acting was horrible because the script was horrible. You see what I'm saying? So, and storytelling, it feels like because of the agendas, also because of this stuff, they're changing the script, they're writing the script in order to appease like this sort of newer generation of people that not necessarily even go into the movie theaters, if that makes sense, right? They will watch the movie later, maybe somewhere, right? And they're trying to appease this audience, and the quality of the movie just suffers because of that. And I'm telling this as a person that is not against modernity. I'm just against bad product, right? I'm against bad movies, for example. And I'm not saying like bad movies, like for example, a movie that, let's say, because at some point you watch all the classics, right? You watch all the top something 200 movies, and you just start to kind of deviate, and you just start, let me watch that kind of like low rating movie, and then you find something good there, right? So it's the same with books. It's like you gotta have some foundation to understand like what you like and what you want to see, what you want to like spend your time on, and then you can go in the free kind of like explorer mode, and you can just pick up any type of movie, any type of book, right? And you can give it a chance, give it a try, give it your time. And the same thing with movies, right? And I can tell you that sometimes it's just like in some movies, like you have bad acting, but it's like purposely bad because it's a low budget movie, for example, right? Or because it's like The Room or something like this. But when you have like a serious kind of movie and you have like, you can see that this is just a bad acting. I'm so sorry, but it's just you don't believe the characters. The story doesn't make sense, right? And they kind of redo everything. So in this case, it's very kind of difficult to kind of enjoy this for me personally, yeah. And I think he used this story, his specific script story, because it's like you cannot go wrong with it, low-key, right? It's like, it's almost, for me, this, when I saw the trailer and when I saw the cast, I was a little bit intrigued, but also I saw the amount of backlash, and I instantly thought that how I'm going to perceive this project, how I'm with my eyes gonna look at it, is that it feels like you have this kind of uni or a school, and someone is setting up like it's a theater, school theater or something like this, and you just like pick all the school kids to play different roles, and maybe some of the older, like, I don't know, teachers or someone from, you know, administrative positions, they also like, it's kind of music, not a school musical, but school theater or something. I don't know how to convey this properly, but it feels like this kind of a little bit experimental, almost when you experiment to the point where you can like bring imaginary set or have a lot of things that sort of like you have to buy into as an audience member, because in some movies everything is just already kind of figured out for you, so you just sit and watch the whole story. It's a straight story. Everything is just, it is exactly what it shows you, so you don't have to use your imagination. Or maybe you have on purposefully experimental projects, not because it's a low budget, where there is something that you as an audience have to kind of like buy into. There is some kind of idea or something. It's almost like, imagine like this kind of like theater play where you have just like one location. Let's say it's like a white room, 4 walls, right? I mean, one wall missing, obviously, so that the audience can see what's happening. And inside that wall, they, let's say, do like Shakespeare or something, right? So it's everything like, it's, let's say, Hamlet, right? But you got to imagine that this is like, you know what I'm saying? You got to like imagine that this is like the characters, and this is like, you know, a version. It's like a, how to say, personal director's vision of this story. So it's like a reiteration. It's like his take on the story, some kind of like this. It's like Baz Luhrmann with Romeo and Juliet, right? So he took the story, he put it in different location, he brought in different like costumes and all those different things, kind of like conflicts, gang conflicts and all this stuff. This is his version of Romeo and Juliet, right? So when I saw the trailer for Odyssey and all this stuff, obviously Nolan is not the type of director who can just go crazy in this imaginarium field. Like, you know, he's very like pragmatic and realistic. He wants to stay, even his Batman, he was not fairy tale like. It was opposite of Tim Burton, right? It was very realistic. He tried to make it hyper realistic, even so that you can imagine this type of person like Batman actually exists in the world. But obviously no such thing, right, exists. But what I'm trying to say here is that when I saw the trailer for this movie specifically, that's how I kind of chose to perceive it. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna look at it as like his version, like almost like a school type of musical theatrical play version of this story. That's why I was okay with Elliot Page like as this character, and what I was initially thinking that it will be Achilles, right? And that's why I was like, I had no problem with Zendaya or Tom Holland or some kind of like, or like the I had no like, you know what do you mean, like the Greeks were like African or something? Like I don't care about this, right? So like I told you, bottom line for me, the movie gotta be good, right? It's like the same with this Harry Potter cast, right? With this, like, a lot of people are saying that like upset that this Snape character is gonna be played by an English African actor, from what I understand. But if it will be good, if the project will be good, no one will talk about it. And if his acting will be good, no one will talk about it. I'm telling you. I mean, only people who will still talk about it, either they have an agenda or they're just dumb or something like this. Or they just watch movies for different things. They just kind of just looking for negativity or something like this. So when I saw the trailer, that's how I chose basically that I'm gonna approach it like this, right? So I'm gonna give this director because a chance, because he already proved that he deserves, let's say, my time personally, right? Because he already created a certain like legacy for himself, like a body of work that you can go back to and you can enjoy and you can still watch and say, you know what, yes, he definitely put effort into this and put his time and attention and devotion and a little bit of soul also, right, in this project. So I can watch it, I can enjoy it as an audience member. So when I saw the trailer, I was already considering all those things and I was like, let me just give this guy a chance, right? So, and I will approach it as like, this is his version of this story, right? I don't want to, I don't want it to be like historical. I don't want it to be fact based. I don't want it to be like, you know, like, because I'm not a historian, I'm not an archaeologist or something. I have no fucking idea what type of helmets they were wearing back in the day, right? But what I want to see, it's a good story, good movie, good acting, right? I want to just see something good, like, in order for to feel something and to reflect maybe, right? And to kind of ponder on certain things, or ponder over, ponder on. All right. So, and I think in this case, he in this agenda, that in this kind of like culture that is right now, because if you think about it, he didn't really touch it at all. Like he didn't make a movie that was touching certain subjects in a culture and kind of like referring to certain processes in our culture nowadays. He was not making like a movie like Civil War or something like this, right? He doesn't have those type of movies. It seems like he's always choosing like different time periods in history, puts his characters there, and through this story he kind of like talks about something, obviously about life, right? About certain things that are happening still to this day, or maybe even commenting on the current situation, right? So I think that's his kind of like language, that's his approach. So in this case, I think you gotta treat certain things like as metaphors. And also, I think the movies that I watched from Christopher Nolan, I don't think that he's like a progressive leftist or something like this, you know? So I think he's a craftsman, and I think he has certain, like, being like maybe British or something, he has certain like respect to the tradition. I don't know, that's, maybe I'm putting, you know, kind of like words in someone's mouth or something like this. Maybe it's not true. That's how I kind of perceive it, right? It's my perception. Person that cherishes older kind of order of things, if that makes sense, right? Just based on the fact that he tries not to use CGI, for example, right? It kind of tells you already something about his type of personality and the type of ideals and type of values that he's bringing to his art also, right? Or that he's communicating through his art, let's put it like this. So in this case, he picks like a timeless classic story that no one really can like debunk or like criticize or compromise in any shape or form, right? Because it just stood the test of time. This story is like 4,000 years old or something like this, right? So he takes this, he kind of checks all the boxes in terms of like who you need to cast, like, etc. Technologically, he checks all the boxes, right? He casts all these actors who are big young actors, but still he's able to produce a movie that is enjoyable to watch without focusing too much on those like aspects of culture so that are being talked about. So he's still telling you what he wants to tell you, right? So he's showing you what he wants you to see. And it leaves you with these thoughts, or leaves you with this certain, like, you know, feeling that is designed sort of by him, which also will communicate your certain values, right? I think that's a smart move, because imagine like if he uses original script, or if he chooses like a different story, which for example will be like trashed like by the audience, but maybe a progressive audience or something like this, right? They will say like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, this is a story about like about a white man who's like conquering like land, or this is just a story about white man who's like telling us how to live, or like this is white man's order or something like this, right? White males order also, right? Something like this. So I think he kind of like avoids this conversation in a way, even though this is a movie where Matt Damon, he's the Odysseus, right? He is the sort of the focal point of the movie. I mean, depends on how you look at it, of course, right? But basically, he's the main character. This the movie is called after him, basically, right? This is his journey, but he's still able to show it in a way that it's very difficult to just talk shit about it, if that makes sense. It's kind of shit proof, low key. It's kind of critic proof. So the people from the traditional camp, they are still will be shitting on him because he used all those actors and because he used Elliot Page like for the to play or something, or because he used like female stunt doubles, or because to shoot that scene where the giants on the island. People who will want to talk shit, they will still talk shit. And on the left, let's say progressive people, they will still talk shit, like because there's Matt Damon like a main character and he's like a man, or who's like kind of like violent and cheating on his wife or something. Whatever, like people will find a way to like shit on this. But in general, just from the point of a movie, right? This is the movie that I enjoyed for sure. I'm not gonna be too skeptical or too misleading with it. I'm gonna tell it to you straight. This is a movie that I enjoyed for sure, and I think he masterfully kind of used this kind of timeless story to actually tell you sort of like the things that he wanted you to hear, but at the same time he also checked all the boxes, like the Hollywood boxes, right? So he kind of jumped over all those hurdles low-key, and probably he will end up with an Oscar, from what I understand, from what I've seen. And the response, I think the movie, people, I want to watch the movie for the second time. I think other people will want to watch the movie for the second, for the third time. So I think it's gonna be a profitable project for the studios and stuff. And culturally, I think he checked all the boxes. And is this foreshadowing of this kind of new sort of liberal some kind of turn in culture? I don't know about this. I'm not going to do this kind of crazy kind of conclusions, because there are plenty of people on YouTube who will make those essays. But yeah, so what else I read in here? Old school values, right? That's what it feels like. So that's how this movie felt to me. It felt like this timeless story from almost like a movie from the 90s. That's how it felt, like from golden age of this kind of where America produced these amazing movies like that everyone values very, rates very highly. It's almost how it felt like, but with the modern kind of twists a little bit here and there. But in general, it felt like the movie is championing the kind of old school way of things and values, but leaving the room for younger talent, literally, because in the end of the movie the parents leave, right? And the kids are at home alone, basically. So it's their time to just live life and just do something, which is a beautiful message, right? And then you say parading the newer agenda was not the goal of the movie, right? So however, it used elements of that. So I think I already said that, right? So he checked all the boxes, but still he told the story that he wanted you to hear, and maybe even masked it under this trailer and under this huge backlash that it's going to be a transgender actor in the movie or something, kind of circling back to this point where I started. I mean, was this about Elliot Page? Was it this movie about him or his character? No, he's a part of the movie, sort of he's a part, metaphorically you can say that different people, they are also, all of us, we are all part of life, this collective experience that we are producing sort of every day. So, and that's also kind of a substantial, beautiful message, right? It's but definitely, even from the point of marketing and from the point of strategy, right? I think it was a smart decision to create the buzz around the movie, and even negative, but still feedback. You know what? Because at the end of the day, I think people will still, I already see a lot of memes. I know just people enjoyed the movie. That's it. It just feels like it, It just feels like it, that people, when the memes are actually kind of mimicking, when people are mimicking scenes from the movie without being cynical or mocking anything, joking a little bit, but still it's I want to be in the movie, I don't know how to explain this, but, and also there is something when you watch really a certain type of movie, can be a bad movie also, but if it's again, some effort was put into this, it will leave you in a certain mood, for maybe a day or maybe for a couple of hours, maybe for some people until they watch another movie or something like this. But definitely I think this is the type of movie that puts you in a certain spot, feeling wise, emotion wise, for sure, like definitely. And the fact that it's like a happy end movie, low-key, right? So again, that's why I'm saying about that it's a timeless classic, because it's a happy end also there. Because in the modern version, like even like a Barbie movie, for example, right, can you say that this is a happy end? If you think about it, it's a very scary ending of this movie. And that's what I remember, like I was confused about this, because at the end of the day, sort of the Barbie just like kind of everything, all opportunities are in front of her, like the whole world is in front of her, just do what you want. But what do you want to do? It's like, and it felt a little bit kind of empty and kind of scary, like shit, like will I be able to find something that will actually, like, you know, fulfill me, or like something that will be you know what I'm saying? So it's very like, so it felt like in that movie, it felt like an open ending, low-key, you know. And in Nosferatu, for example, the ending is, it's not a happy end. You can say like, yeah, like the city is saved from this evil, from this demon, but there was a lot of, it almost felt already like, because in the modern, this is a complete detour, but in modern Nosferatu, I don't think they showed enough that that was there was something genuine between the girl and the demon and the vampire. Because in the Klaus Kinski movie, and even in the Dracula story version of this story, there is actually like a connection, like literally, like the girl actually wants the demon and the demon wants the girl, like, and it creates this kind of bond which is very tragic. And you just know that it's not going to end good, right? Because this is an, you could say, a force that can be dangerous to the just let's say casual people, like normal people, sort of, if that makes sense. So there is no happiness in the end of Nosferatu. It's a different story, of course. Yeah, you can say that, but I think you get the point, right? So that I'm trying to kind of make that obviously in the newer movies, very few of them actually have this kind of like, they're written in a way that you can feel like relief in the end. That is like, whew, I just watched the story, everything ended good, and I'm leaving the movie theater with this kind of little bit of optimism, you know, or with a big amount of optimism. There are not enough movies like this nowadays, or maybe the movies that will still leave you like satisfied, maybe a little bit like kind of shaken up, but still optimistic and hopeful, maybe a little bit serene also. Yeah, I think it's a good project. I think definitely everyone who worked on that movie, like they done an amazing job, and definitely gonna rewatch it, and I'm gonna see what type of, you know, kind of what type of vibe that I'm getting for the second time on the bigger screen also. Yeah, I think I covered everything I wanted to say. What is the takeaway? That you know what, it doesn't matter what type of time people are living in, and what type of like even the objectives that you have as a storyteller, let's say, right? I'm gonna insinuate, I'm not gonna say that Nolan, you know, had to show you something that, you know, that was needed. Let me put it like this. So it doesn't matter what type of circumstances you are in, and it doesn't matter what type of day and age, what type of era you're going through, you can still make good work. And it doesn't even matter who's gonna be, you know, I'm not gonna say who's gonna be playing, who's gonna be, you know, actors who's going to be performing in the movie, starring in the movie. I'm not going to say it's not important, but I think the agenda is even important, you know. It's like you can still make an amazing movie, amazing project, amazing work, even if you have to appease certain audience, or if you have to be in a certain like box a little bit, right? Or it's still possible. You just have to focus on the quality of the craft, sort of, you know. Because like I said, I think the audience is a little bit ambivalent, and if that makes sense. Of course, they will react to certain names, to certain like signals, but in general, the audience just craves, they want entertainment, of course, but also they want a story, they want a substance, and they want something to kind of like make maybe sense, maybe explain to them something, or maybe evoke something inside of them. So they want some kind of like piece of art, but also entertainment, right? Also experience. And at the end of the day, all people, they're open to different stories. So that's why different movies are at the top, you know? You have different stories about different people, like, and it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's just about some kind of humanity, if that makes sense. And if the director, if the artist can strike a certain chord inside of you, inside of your soul, let's call it like this, right? And it can resonate, it doesn't matter who the story will be about, okay? So that's why people watch movies, because they want to, and listen to music and make art and consume art, because they want to go outside of themselves, right? And maybe experience someone else's story, even for an hour, even for 2-3 hours or something. Maybe if it's a song for 5 minutes or something, right? Or 3 minutes or something like this, right? So that's the whole point. And I think as long as we are able to kind of like, you know, like that, like the bow that he was not charging, stringing, right? Like the bow that he was stringing, and then like when he done it, like he was pulling like the string, and it made the sound. Like it's almost like, as a creator, as an artist, that's what you want to do inside of a soul of a person. You want to like pull that string to release that like sound, you know, to resonate with a person. Because at the end of the day, we're going through similar experiences in different bodies, right? In different costumes, but we're going through the similar experience. And as long as we can empathize, right? And as long as we can relate to each other, and some art, it can help us do that. And I think that's not like the objective or the message, but when it happens, it's beautiful, and I think that's definitely valuable. Okay, that's about it. So no rating. The takeaway is that there are ways to actually make great art. It doesn't matter what time you live in it, you know. That's the point.